Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the Business Revolution week so far. We're very excited to be bringing this special event to you, and we thank you for your attendance. My name is John Hannon, and I'm an analyst with Culkin Ginsberg. I wanted to run through a few housekeeping items before we jump into the informative roundtable that we've got for you. First, I want to thank our wonderful sponsors and subject matter experts for their continued support. Without them, none of this would be possible, so we're very thankful to them. Second, I'd like to give a disclaimer. The information that you're about to hear in this roundtable discussion is not intended as legal, financial, or advice of any kind, and it may not be used as such. Advice must be tailored to the specific circumstances of each case. Every effort has been made to ensure that this information is up to date as of the date of this roundtable. It is not intended to be a full and exhaustive explanation, nor may you use this information to replace the advice of your own legal counsel. The speakers assume no liability for any verbal mistakes or other errors contained in this roundtable, or for changes that occur in the future that affect anything that's discussed therein. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and we'll jump right into this informative roundtable. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike Ginsberg. I'm the president and CEO of Culkin Ginsberg Company. We lined up today 3 phenomenal subject matter experts who are going to share their perspective on nearshore and offshore recovery strategies during this unprecedented and dynamic time. Let me first introduce our experts. Eric Pittman is the president of Vital Solutions. This is an accounts receivable management firm operating a nationally licensed collection agency under its subsidiary, Vital Recovery Services. Vital plays a strategic role as part of Fusion BPO Services, which is ranked among the world's most diversified global BPO companies, operating 17 sites from 8 different countries with more than 6,000 employees. David Crease is the owner, president, chief executive officer, and one of the founders of KM Squared Solutions. I've had the privilege of working with David Crease now for almost 30 years, and I'm just thrilled that he's involved in this roundtable. David he really has extensive background in credit, collections, customer care, which has directed KM Squared to its current status as one of the fastest growing and technologically advanced companies in the industry. KM Squared is also solely a nearshore provider of all its BPO services. Last but not least, Jason Henning, Senior Vice President, North America and Philippines operations for Bill Gosling. As a seasoned operator in the BPO and contact center industry, Jason has 15 plus years of experience in international operations for all verticals from automotive, fintech, e-commerce, and utilities. Today, at Bill Gosling, he leads U.S., nearshore, as well as offshore operations. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you.
Why don't we get things started? Really, the first point here, we've gone around the horn, and all of you gentlemen submitted really interesting, important discussion topics. I think the best way to kick this off is with this point, insourcing versus outsourcing. What are the touch points that decision makers are considering in today's market? David, why don't you get us started?
Thank you very much, Michael. Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So let's start with the definition. Insource. I'm pretty familiar with insourced. Insource is when everybody keeps their operations to themselves. For many different reasons, especially in the past. I've worked for major banks and financial institutions that never outsourced. Today's a different day. Our industry is very different. So let's take a look at how big this industry is, first of all. Based upon consulting groups, Alliance Market Consulting, as well as Frost & Sullivan, they estimate the market, the whole market for outsourcing, it's probably somewhere around 82 billion. Don't hold me to that, but 82 billion is a pretty big number. I could be off by a billion or two. Okay, so why is outsourcing so important? Well, we only represent anywhere between 10 and 20% of the total outsourcing market. That means $60 billion of revenue is still insourced. All of us are going after insourced clients. So the market is really big, it's diverse, and it's exciting. Now, if you asked me this when I first started building OSI back in 1995, the largest collection company at that time, which I acquired, was $130 million. The whole market was fragmented. Now it's huge. That's why this conference, this webinar is so important to all of us, because there's such a great opportunity out there. So that's exciting. What I look for, what I am looking at when I look at this market, is clients that are looking to lower their cost, looking for infrastructure opportunities, because they feel that some of the infrastructure opportunities here in the US is getting smaller and smaller, given the pandemic that we've all been suffering with. For me, Nearshore was a great solution back in 2004. It continues. Not only do you get anywhere between 50% in discounts by going down into a nearshore or a outshore type of solution, but what's more exciting, you get a resource pool and you get an infrastructure, a physical infrastructure that can be utilized in some places at 100%. Thank you, Michael.
Decided to mute, and now I had to remember how to unmute. Let's pass this ball around a little bit. Insourcing versus outsourcing. Eric, do you have something you want to share?
Yeah, I'd be happy to chime in. Mike and gentlemen, very happy to be here with you today, and thanks for inviting me. I agree that cost savings is a driving factor, and companies are really fighting to survive, and outsourcing makes a lot of sense, and the right outsourcing partner really matters. And we believe very strongly that while price is very important, quality is a very, very close second. So choosing the right outsourcing provider is a very important choice as well. And I can also tell you that from our perspective, the thing about outsourcing in a nearshore or further destination is that it's also a lot of fun to create jobs. You find when you get to meet these people that they are very energetic, they're very hungry for an opportunity, and you don't always see that hunger for work domestically. So that was an unexpected treat for me when I first started learning about nearshore and offshore opportunities and visiting sites and getting engaged with operations there was how pleasant it was to work with the people, and what a pleasant surprise it was to see such incredible work ethic.
Excellent, excellent. Jason, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I think whether you're insourcing or outsourcing, our clients are getting more sophisticated and thinking more about getting the right call in front of the right talent pool at the right cost in the right location. We see that on the captive side as we see the likes of Amazon going into several nearshore locations, but it continues to be a theme on the outsourcing side as well. And we're to the point where we see that the opportunities to do multi-services in a multi-geo setup with a singular client, and I think that trend will continue.
It's interesting, gentlemen. I've lived in this industry now for the same amount of time that most of you have been in this industry, decades. And I remember when the first accounts were offshored to India almost 30 years ago, and where we are today. I think the resistance points have evolved very, very tremendously, due in large part to the successes that firms like yours and others are having, handling these on a outsourced basis versus insourced. But I remember a story, and it's just something I lived through back in the 90s. A client of mine was in the collection business using power dialers, and they decided that they could create their own better mousetrap. Okay. So they built a power dialer and they used it internally at first. And then they decided they were going to provide this power dialer to either their competitors, who at that time they didn't view much as competitors because they had the power dialer that they built, right? As well as selling the technology on a third-party basis. Okay. So to companies that may want the dialer on a private label basis, or maybe using it in-house as their own dialer for excuse me, for credit grafters. Well, I'll fast forward through the story, and what happened was it was a great device, but as soon as they released it, it was outdated because they were not a technology company. They were a collection agency, right? So they didn't know all the bells and whistles at the time. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into. And all of a sudden their technology, I mean, it crashed and burned miserably. After about 5 years and about $5 million of investment, they realized they were not in that business. They were in the collection business. You guys are in the outsourcing, whether it's nearshore, offshore, hybrid, you're in this business. In my opinion, and I'm not bashful, so I'll just say it, creditors don't have anywhere near the capability of specialists, okay? Some flirt with it, some might have it, but I'm not talking about, you guys are all large organizations. I'm not talking about the BPO companies of the world. That's the space you play in. I'm talking about the technology. You get to a creditor, okay? By definition, they're in the business of extending credit. They're not in the business of doing what you guys do and do very well. I'm just wondering from your perspective, how do they embrace that? Are they resistant to the change because my infrastructure is the best, or legal doesn't allow me to outsource, or whatever other resistance points are there? Or are they more accepting of the fact that you guys probably have far superior capabilities than they have in-house? Please comment and feel free to discuss.
Mike, I think what you're thinking about here are the drivers to outsourcing. And they've changed. And they changed.
Evolve, right, David?
Well, I wouldn't call a pandemic evolving. Let me explain what I mean by that. Prior to the pandemic, let's say we go back over a year ago, when I would sit down with a prospect, a CEO, and he talked to me about, my business is growing. We're growing 10, 15%. I live here in Indianapolis. And if you remember back then, the unemployment rate was really low. And what he would focus on is I put an ad out to get 30 agents and 3 show up. Now, that's Indianapolis. That was Dallas. That was Southern California. You just go around the horn with the unemployment rate the way it was before. People were looking at a driver of, I can't build my core business without agents, without my outsourcing, without my operations. And nobody wants to work here. I can't find anyone, so I've got to outsource. That was one driver. Then the pandemic comes. Now there's a second driver. Every one of the infrastructures was shut down. As we could see what's going on in New York today with all of the buildings completely shut down. When will they open? Don't know. Okay, it's not a good driver, but it is a driver. With outsourcing today, most of the countries that we probably work in, actually we have been allowed to grow to 60% capacity, 75% capacity. And I know in the Caribbean, we're at 100% capacity, meaning we can utilize every single seat. So, and that's only because I think the virus has not actually hit some of the more, as I know, the nearshore footprint. I don't know how it is in the Philippines or how it is in Canada, but I do know in the nearshore area, I'll include Canada, if you don't mind, we're a full boat. And what happened was everybody shut down in the US and they called up and they said, I need more seats. There's no more seats. Can you do work from home? So all of a sudden that rubber band expanded because we all have utilized, as you said, technology with work from home. And now we've expanded our own footprint internally. So that's what I have seen as the major drivers and changes. And right now, I have no outlook for the next 12 to 18 months. It's just going to have to be, we're going to have to see what happens with a virus and where it heads us in the sense of growth.
Eric, Jason, anything you want to contribute before we move on to the next point?
Yeah, I think I would focus on maybe the technology side a little bit. So, I think in the most recent 18 months, the acceptance of external technology has changed a fair bit. And maybe the road I'll go down on that is really digital collections and digital tools. As we talk to the large and regional and credit union type financial services clients that have not pushed the envelope on the technology front in the past, are now finding themselves in a situation where they don't have the resource or time is not on their side to build the product. So I think we're definitely seeing a lower bar of resistance and a higher level of acceptance on the technology front for sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, nothing like a little pandemic to change people's thinking and get them to be open-minded to change. So yeah, we're definitely not only seeing some more opportunities from outsourcing, but even with some existing clients, very conservative clients, a willingness to have their servicing done, offshore. These are clients that never ever, if you had told me in January we'd be servicing them, in other locations now, would I've ever dreamed that to be true? And not only is it true that they're moving nearshore and offshore for that benefit, but just allowing the work from home in general. And my hope is that we will be able to sustain the work from home posture and the third party environment for a long time. States and regulators and these conservative clients, or how comfortable are they going to be with it long term? I don't know. But as we're starting to see some of them announce that they're allowing this sort of thing to continue into the first quarter of next year, to me, that's kind of a sign that, well, they're either waiting on winter to pass and for it to get warm and us to get past flu season, or maybe they're really opening up to a longer term change. So we're hoping for the best.
We're going to see. We're going to see. Related to this, Jason, I'm going to ask you to lead discussions on location demands. So what is currently being seen in your markets? What are the most go or no-go locations as you're kind of seeing the world? It's going to be interesting because we have both offshore and nearshore here. So the perspectives are probably going to be different. But how are you seeing the world right now, Jason, from a standpoint of location demands?
Yeah, so I think there's been a shift, and part of that is pandemic driven, I believe. But the demand has begun to soften for the Asian locations such as India and Philippines, and I think that's partially because folks can't travel. So from a business development cycle, when you talk about setting up a new program in a location that far away, people get a little nervous. So, and I'm sure David will speak to this as well, but nearshore demand has really picked up. I mean, we opened a year ago in Costa Rica, assuming it would take us 2 years to fill our location, and it was full in 9 months. So the fact that capacity is available near shore and prospects and clients feel a little bit more comfortable launching remotely in a time where you're also doing work from home, I think we're certainly seeing the demand pick up from a nearshore perspective. Our current volumes and ongoing volumes, in our Philippines operation, are still holding steady, but the demand for exponential growth that we've seen in the past, we're not seeing currently during the pandemic. So, David, I know this is near and dear to you as well, so I'll throw it over to you and get your perspective.
Trying to think if you're Aaron Rodgers throwing me a pass or if Brady. So either way, let's catch it here.
You picked two good quarterbacks. Why don't you pick my quarterback at the Jets instead? He'll never get you the ball.
You don't have a quarterback.
Good point.
Okay. All right. So that was a good answer to that question. And this is actually a third driver. I must admit, we've been very lucky. We've been growing at about a 20% CAGR since we started in 2004. Trust me, most of that is just damn luck. But also where we are, Jason, because I think what you're also kind of alluding to is that a lot of new prospects are looking for geographic diversification. And I think it's a pendulum that's going to go back and forth. We're probably getting a lot of wins from folks that are still in the Philippines, love the Philippines, but say, hey, anything can happen here, and I can't have all my eggs in one basket. So the pendulum is flowing back, and that's why Nearshore right now is probably growing faster than any other outsourcing area. A lot of that is because we're small. When Nearshore is small and it's growing by 30%, that's not a lot versus Philippines growing by 5%. But everybody is now aware of the fact that I need to be geographically diversified. And that will stop sometime when the capacity in Nearshore starts, let's say, becoming less scarcer. And the pendulum will then go around the world, and we will provide outsourcing services from any place, anywhere, at any time. I can't believe last week I was talking about South Africa. I was talking about Croatia. I was talking about Egypt. It's like, I would never go there. Not because it's not friendly places to go, but for me, it's a little too far. That's why I like Nearshore. But everybody's talking about the next place, the next capacity, and the biggest challenge we have across the board, even in the Philippines, is basically, where's my next capacity coming from?
Hey, David, along those lines, I'm curious, is it better to be first into a region or follow the leader?
Yes and yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, India kind of proved the fact that you can really lower costs. And going back to something you said, Eric, I think the primary driver from the very beginning was price. Then became like, wow, these people can do a really great job. And everybody went to the Philippines because the English was much better. And they proved themselves to do a fairly good job. And the same thing with Nearshore. I mean, there are a lot of pluses in Nearshore because, you've got cultural affinity, you've got countries that don't have any outsources at all. I mean, we were a monopoly in a couple of countries that we're in. But then again, you got the Philippines that got tremendous capacity to bring in thousands and thousands of jobs. So I think, Mike, to answer your question, for all intents and purposes, that has evolved and has evolved very nicely for our industry.
For all participants, it sounds like, who are involved in either Nearshore or non-Nearshore, right? Whether it's as close as Canada, well, I think you would say Canada's Nearshore.
Canada's Nearshore.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But when you get into like South America, where the time zones are similar, if not the same, the travel is increased, but you feel a little more comfortable because you're not going halfway around the world to get there. Let's shift gears a little bit. Eric, why don't you talk about shared services and the shared service model, specifically how that's evolved and where are we today?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Mike. The CFPB rolling out their rules for collection agencies, which included a very complex compliance management system, really put a significant burden on agencies, especially national agencies that are large market participants. I remember in the early days, we thought we were really something special, and I think it was 2006 we formalized a white knight strategy, and And it, at the time, really consisted of an ISO 17799 report, audit report, so that we could say that we had this great information security program, and your business is going to be safe with us and all that. And clients were really impressed with that. And so, fast forward to today, we've got about 7 alphabet reports that we have to say that you have to have, and that's just to be on the playing field. And then the CFPB says your compliance management system has to have all of these components, and they're all very resource heavy. So that's a significant burden on an arm company. And what we have developed, leveraging offshore and nearshore resources, is a pretty comprehensive shared services organization. So we're not really outsourcing U.S. jobs. We're just supplementing our need for things like quality monitoring, call monitoring, and reporting and internal audit. These types of programs that are required to not only run a good solid business, but to check these boxes for compliance requirements. So we found that leveraging the offshore nearshore shared services model did tremendous things for strengthening the business that we've got.
Well said. Well said. Gentlemen, sharing of the service model being shared. Any comments or any additional thoughts as it relates to that specific topic?
Sure, maybe I'll go next.
Thanks, Jason.
I think the idea of the old school look of the brain sitting in a head office, and all the knowledge sitting in a head office, and the branches really just being service centers, is becoming very much outdated for many of the reasons Eric said on the cost front, but also the quality. The head office is becoming a virtual environment, and I think the trend is moving towards taking your business to the talent, and as opposed to dragging the talent to your head office location. I think this pandemic has continued to accelerate that, and we've certainly seen it in our business go that direction.
Thank you. Thank you. David, anything you want to add?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I look at shared services, and I look from the background that I came from, working many years with Citibank. Some of you are probably not old enough to remember when Citibank only could do business in New York State, but that's okay. And American Express, where under one roof we had every function. And of course, we always believed at American Express that nobody can do operations better than we could. At that time, they were right, but outsourcing wasn't available back then. Today, what I see, and I'll give you an example. We started with one client in 2006, and we provided welcome calls, just welcoming them as a customer to the new brand, explaining to them their account number, their pay date, the amount due, and phone numbers that they needed to call. And that 15 people morphed to 20 to 30. And then we got collections, and then we got customer service, and then we got verifications. Then we got funding and pre-funding. And all of a sudden, what you realize is that we can be that umbrella where sits all of your functions in your core business. Now, I will mention that 60% of our clients we're exclusive with. We don't compete against any other vendors. And by the way, we're not a collection agency. We are a BPO, but we do first party, all the way up to about 90 days. But what has happened today is we have become a part of the client's business. They look at us as one of their teams, and we compete against their teams. And yeah, at the end of the month, if we're beating all their teams, we celebrate. If they win, they celebrate. But what has happened is it's a BPO industry today that was nothing like it 15 years ago. 15, 20 years ago, you would get a piece of business and that's all you would get. Collections would go to a collection agency, customer care would go to customer service, sales would go to another industry. Today, it's all mingled. And we feel that we could do everything under the one roof. And I like that aspect of the business. It's exciting.
Cool. Excellent. Actually, Jewel here. Let's move on. You mentioned work from home. I think all of you have mentioned work from home. Interesting, right? Over the years, there has been evolution, right? For example, offshoring, people thought maybe we're onto something. Maybe it's a flash in the pan, and it's not going to stay. 30 years later, here we are today. Nearshore, same thing, maybe 20, 15 years ago. Let's talk about work from home. Work from home, whether it's a consumer advocacy group, a regulator, technology, the position of the credit grantor, the position of your client, right? Or, regardless of the service offering, and also your own capabilities. This was forced upon us. This was not a little pandemic, right? This was a global pandemic, and everybody reacted. We were all, as they said, in the same boat. And we were able to successfully, I think most companies surprised us by successfully moving their staff home very, very quickly. Okay, well, let's talk about where we are today. We're about 3 weeks out of 2 weeks out from an election. The world is going to change again. It has changed significantly because of the pandemic. It's changed significantly because of, climate change and what we're seeing on the West Coast with fires, and even in the Gulf right now with the hurricanes, right? Let's specifically focus on where are we today with work from home. Where have you been over the last 6 months? I'm sure you all should be applauded for the efforts that you've undertaken. David, you mentioned you were at full capacity, which is amazing. 100% capacity, I think you said, in some of your locations. Why don't we start off with you, and then let's go around the horn and talk about work from home. Is it a viable solution? Is it here to stay?
Interesting. Once again, it's better to be lucky than smart here, I got to tell you. It was about 2 years ago when my chief technology officer came to me and said, I think I want to build the capability of having a universal agent. And I said, what's a universal agent? I was thinking of a Marvel hero or something. And he said, no. What it is we move our people all over the place in a particular facility. And, we spend a lot of time and cost doing that. But today, we can probably move somebody from the first floor with their group up to the third floor just by plugging in. I said, go for it. Sounds like a brilliant idea. A year and a half later, all of a sudden, we have the pandemic hitting us. Centers are closing, then the capacity is being reduced. And this chief technology officer says, remember that idea I had? Well, you know what? We have the capability now, and it can be used for work from home. I said, really? Well, within 3.5 weeks, I think we moved out about 1,500 agents across all of our centers. So that was really like, wow. Because if you were looking in March and coming close to April, you were turning white. You were saying, where's my business going? This was dying. All right, work from home. There's the technology. The question is, how well does it work? Well, when I first went to my clients to ask them, 1 or 2 clients actually said, no, I don't want to do work from home. But a couple said, yeah, we'll test it. And I had them actually sign a sheet saying both of us are going to test it together. So I want to make sure that if there's a problem, you're not going to come back to me and say, whoa, that was the worst thing that ever happened. I said, we're doing this together as a partnership. They said, yeah, we need it. We're shut down in Atlanta. I have no choice. So here we go, work from home. We discovered 2 big challenges. One is actually environmental. And that's what you kind of discussed at the very beginning of this webinar. That basically, it focuses on the internet, the Wi-Fi, the capabilities in a local country, the brownouts that occur that take everybody down. I mean, this is not easy. Okay, some countries can do it. Probably the more developed countries have more of a, let's say, 5G network. But some of the smaller ones, very difficult, but you can get over it. So being environmental, we had to really be careful. I mean, you got roosters, you know, roostering right behind you. You've got kids screaming and crying because everybody's home because schools are closed. Customers are hearing that. Most of my clients were wonderful. They said, you know what, we have to deal with this. This is the new us. But let's see how better we can get together. And I thought that was a good way to approach this. The technical issues, we solved the technical issues pretty fast. Point to point from our centers to their homes. So from a physical sense, it was easy to move everybody over, you know, and the way you move them over in a small country is you get one of these local vans, you throw all the computers in there, you get the agents in there, and you drive them to your home, and you help them set up. And I got to tell you, it was like every single day was a hair-brainer. So at the end of the day, we were able to actually utilize 1/3 of our, or actually at that time, it was probably 1/5 of our business, which was great. What about the future? I'm someone that's not a work from home fan unless it's for a specific function. So when I'm talking sales, for example, collections, for example, I like them within the facility. I like them in the facility because they get to know who their supervisors are physically. They know who their teams are. They're there physically building the kind of company that you want. The folks that are working from work from home, they're a little bit outside of that. So we've kind of created a workflow where every single month we're bringing 20 in, 20 goes out. So that kind of rotation helps us retrain those that we feel need to build their quality up, because it's very difficult to keep training when someone is remote. But it's working. And I think work from home is going to be great for back office work. I think it's going to be very good for certain other functions, and it will continue to grow. And we will be dependent upon it only because I don't think we can build capacity fast enough to be able to meet the needs of the clients.
Excellent, David. Thank you. Eric, work from home. Good,
Well,
bad,
when you sit down for a sales meeting and one of the first questions is, do you have the capability to work from home? You know things have changed. Again, you know, January 15th, you would have never convinced me that we would be even having this discussion right now, but we are, and it's circumstances that we live in. And you know, a couple of years ago, we started making some changes to our IT infrastructure that was really for practical reasons, and trying to simplify the information security and strengthen it at the agent desktop. Well, that at the time we had no idea was going to make it very easy for us to move those same people and their equipment into a remote environment, because they're connecting back to our servers just through a secure tunnel now. So we were very well positioned for that, and we were able to move pretty quickly in the beginning. We were trying to be very careful and strategic about which agents would qualify for the work from home option, and so on and so forth. And you know, the best battle plan goes out the window when the bullets start to fly. And so we basically reached a point very, very quickly. We're like, okay, everybody's got to go. One of the things that I found to be very interesting is in some other countries, there was internet stability issues, electricity issues. You know, some people in certain geographical areas end up, you know, being sent little hot spots that they worked off of, and they worked well. And you know, hearing the stories coming in of what things were like for these people that were our managers, and the situations that they were experiencing was just very, very interesting for me. You know, your heart goes out for them. I mean, you really feel this sense that we're all in this together, when around the globe, everybody's talking about dealing with the same types of issues, just at a different scale. And then as things start to unwind, we see certain areas are allowed to go back sooner. Certain areas, the government's kept them shut down. In certain areas, it was a combination of the two. We had people near one facility in the Philippines where if you lived close enough to the office, you could go to the office. But if you were beyond a certain point, they had roadblocks set up and they'd shut down transportation. So very, very interesting times for sure. You know, in the course of history in the United States for us to be dealing with this and in current times. And, you know, we're the ones, you know, that are really trying to make the best decisions we can every day while thinking of the future, but, you know, just trying to do the best we can today. It's been interesting. I tell you one thing that two final thoughts on this. Number one, I was very surprised at how effective many of our agents were. The majority of our people did so well. It was almost as if they wanted to prove they could do it and were overcompensating because they're like, look, we're great at this. Let us stay at home for as long as we can. But then on the other hand, it's like, you know, walking the floor at month end isn't the same anymore. You know, the excitement of an office building full of people celebrating, cheering, you know, getting payments and ringing bells and the clapping and so forth. You know, the big luncheons to go along with it. These types of things. You know, walking the floor now is quite a bit different when the majority of people are still at home, and I have to say I miss it.
Very good, very good. Let's switch gears slightly and talk about travel requirements. So your clients audit you, right? And by definition, they would travel, they would see your facilities. Maybe today that's done on a more automated kind of remote basis, maybe not. Where is that today, Jason? And how are you guys as vendors kind of managing through?
Yeah, so I would say there's different appetites out there. So we are starting to see some clients who are looking for in-person meetings and or coming on site. But I would say the majority in the main are still in the, hey, we don't want you to come see us and we don't want to come see you mode, which has presented some challenges, right? Because we're 8 months into these fun and games, and clients have requirements to do certain audits. You know, Eric mentioned all the ABC certifications we all have to have now to operate, and those require recertification. So there absolutely has been a push to do remote audits. The engagement with our clients, I think, has actually picked up, you know, as opposed to coming and seeing you once a quarter and maybe you get on an MBR. I think the trend is clients want to know what's going on right now. So they're looking for weekly touch points. That they want the MBRs and the QBRs to have a lot more content than just, hey, did we hit the numbers or not? So I think the overall ask has increased on the amount of engagement clients are looking for, just because they can't see it, feel it, touch it, smell it. But the compliance requirements and rigor on the audit side are still very much there. So, you know, I can't tell you how many audits we've been through in the last 6 months where our IT leader in a site is doing a physical walkthrough with a webcam to show the show the access points and take a review of the server rooms and so on. So I would guess that's what Eric and David are seeing as well, but that's what I'm seeing on my end.
Excellent. Thank you. Gentlemen, anything as it relates to this important topic of audits and how they've changed and where they are?
Well, it's okay. Eric, if I can go first, then you could add to, I guess, my view of where things are today with travel. I agree with you, Jason. Everything has been pretty much shut down. Vendors are no longer coming to the sites. We're doing everything via Zoom. And by the way, that could be another problem in doing work from home, because all the kids are home and they're all on gaming, using tremendous amount of broadband, and my Zoom goes off occasionally. But travel has gone down significantly. My biggest worry was, is that going to result in clients or prospects not fulfilling their outsourcing needs because they cannot kick the tires? As Eric said, there are certain due diligence things that they must do. But I will tell you that we've signed about 6 new clients probably since late June, who have not come down to the centers, who have not kicked their tires. As I mentioned before, their own centers are crushed with either the social distancing aspects, where they can only use 30% of their facility. They must have agents on the telephone. And therefore, that's one of the things that I think has fallen by the wayside. Not to say that once we start traveling, they will bring that back and they will make sure that they do kick the tires. But I just had a prospect, one prospect in all these months, fly down to the Dominican Republic to meet with my client service guy and my sales guy. And my guys only went there at their option. Normally, I would not allow anybody to fly at this point in time unless I decide that flying is right for me. I want to make sure that they're protected and their families are healthy. So I think most of the other guys will probably consent to the same thing. That's basically what I've seen over the last couple of months.
Good for you, David.
Yeah, the only on-site visit we have had was from a new client that was also in the Atlanta market. And I'm almost certain that the guy just wanted to get out of his house and come in and visit with people and take a break. But we were happy to host, and it was a great visit. And I say all that in jest, of course, but you know, I'm talking to you guys about nearshore and offshore and all these exotic locations, from an exotic location known as Canton, Ohio, and an Embassy Suites. And this is the first travel that I've done all year. Well, since February. But while I'm comfortable with it, the majority of the people that we talk to on client sites and prospects, they are not comfortable having visitors yet. I don't think this is going to change at least through the end of the first quarter of next year. You know, so in some regards, I was kind of glad to come off the road for a little while. In other ways, it's like you really miss the engagement with people and being there with people. So I think that I think this is gonna stay this way for a while, and that we have to be really good at our FaceTime productions. I never thought I'd be having these kind of conversations in the office as well. We got to do a better job with your FaceTime as you're walking people through the building. You don't want to make them motion sick and so forth, but technology makes it happen. It's kept us going, right? As a business, we're talking here today. We're doing a virtual conference, and it's working. So technology is going to make this a lot easier and allow us to continue for as long as we need to. You know, so every day's a new day, though.
Every day is a new adventure. And, you know, it's also a great segue, Eric. And I'm going to start with you since you're on the hot seat right now. Gaze into your crystal ball. Okay, let's not make this a political bash. However, let's look at where we're going to be in 2 weeks and a day, 2 weeks and a month, depending on when the election results are actually calculated. What impact is the election going to have on nearshore and offshore?
So the interesting political football with offshore seems to be more focused around manufacturing, I believe, more heavily than our space. And as I shared earlier, we're not really looking to offshore jobs as much as we're leveraging offshore to supplement our needs for growth, right? So we've got unlimited growth capacity, but it's going to be interesting. I think that we're going to experience more social unrest, regardless. And you know, the markets and people really like to have stability, and they like to know what to expect. And this is 2020. we saw the U.S. economy get shut down, and things, then the social unrest events that happened at the scale that they happened, and now you get throw the election in there. It's, is that the next and final shoe to drop? I don't know, but I believe in us. I believe in the American people and the spirit of the American people, and I think that we're going to persevere. It's what our country is built on. And I just hope for the best for our country, and I hope for peace for so many people. And but Mike, without going into any political views on it, I just trust that the American people are going to stay strong, and we're going to get through this, and just like everything else.
I believe you're right. American people will stay strong. I believe that's the constant in this world of chaos. Jason?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. So I think from a threat to our industry, I don't see one coming either way. Based on the results of the election, I think the demand we're still forecasting for it to be there. I think there are more nuanced discussions that are happening at the moment that says, hey, if the left wins and wage rates are driven up, does that force more nearshoring, more offshoring? What's the regulatory environment going to be? I think there are micro discussions happening there, but certainly our business and everyone I'm talking to in the industry is forecasting and bullish on the future of outsourcing. I think there become micro discussions about where that outsourcing exists, whether that drives an increase in domestic outsourcing, or certainly seeing the current trend with a drive towards nearshore outsourcing. But to David's point, at some point that pendulum will move again, and the question is, does that land back in the offshore bucket, or does that land back in the domestic bucket? I don't know, but overall optimism on our industry, I think, continues to remain high.
Thank you. Excellent points. David, anything else on that front that you want to contribute? You want to talk politically?
Politically.
Excuse me.
Bless you. All I can say is that we've heard these issues about outsourcing, not just 4 years ago, but just about every single election. Nothing's changed. I don't think the driver here is the politics of it. I think that, as I mentioned before, one of the drivers is going to be, where does the unemployment rate go? Where do the jobs that were there that are no longer there? What is going to happen then? Where is the vaccine? That's probably more important to getting this country moving and doing the things that we did before, and kind of bringing back the bygone days, which was last February. It's a question mark. We just really don't know, but the survivors in our market will be nimble. And when I say that, nimble in respect to certain industries are not going to survive. For example, hospitality. If you've got an airlines client, I don't know if that's ever coming back to any of the levels that it was before. I am worried about the collection side, especially I'm not worried about my company, but the industry itself, because we've seen historically low charge-offs. And historically low charge-offs with lower delinquencies create less receivables and less amounts that can be outsourced over time. I've seen a great reduction in the collection industry that used to have a very fragmented and used to have thousands of collection agencies. Other areas are growing, healthcare, but even within healthcare, there are some areas that are growing faster than others. So it's going to be the intelligence of the management teams and the nimbleness of the companies that you're all with that kind of will help you survive and grow and flourish in this environment. so long as we can catch the breezes before they turn into significant headwinds.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you all. Parting shots. Here's what I want to do. I want to go around the horn, and I want you each to, within a minute, minute and a half tops, what do you want to part with? What is top of mind that you want to make sure the audience is thinking about when they think about nearshore, offshore, the time that we're in? Jason, let's start with you.
I think probably the biggest hurdle we've seen, and I think Eric and I have both talked about how we've overcome them, is clients' views on work from home in certain regions. So, as we think about work from home, our deployment has been very different by region. Some of that is environmental, which David spoke about, but a lot of it has been client sentiment. So, I encourage our partners that are out there to continue to keep an open mind on the work from home front, the technology changes that are right in front of us, and where the future of kind of digital is going as well.
Thank you. Mr. Crease?
Well, I think it's more of a caution. When I take a look at the industry and where we are right now, the one thing that is still kind of fragmented is a lot of companies are just offering such low rates to get business. And then one day they wake up and they say, how come I have no margin? There is a reasonable range in each region to kind of take a look at what the costs are and what your margins should be. I think for us, the crucial part of it is to be able to manage our costs really, really carefully, but more importantly, to price every project, because big companies really come in and they take over. And you know that, whether it's an AT&T or a Citibank or B of A, when they give you business, they are all over you with eyes. And for me, keeping our margins, which means it helps us kind of continue to grow, is very important. And that's why, we just don't bid for very low price work. And to me, a lot of companies out there are looking for that for a number of reasons. The worst, of course, is because they're not doing well. And I've seen that happen. I've seen a client take down a company because, they had to pull back 200 agents because their own financials were where they could not even go out and get a securitization. And then all of a sudden you're stuck there walking in one day and there's no agents sitting in your seats. So to me, that's the biggest caution that we have to look forward to.
Thank you, David. Mr. Pittman, a parting shot.
Yeah, so just to kind of add to David's comments, if you go out looking for a low-cost provider, that's exactly what you're going to get. And I mean, we had an RFP recently where they told us that they were expecting something in the $3 price point, and that would be price, right? So what that means?
What was that, Eric? Eric, you say $3?
We turned it down. We
You
turned
could
it
do
down.
$3. If you could do $3, I'll give you some work.
Trying to get people to work for $2 an hour is really inhumane. But what I do want to say is that the until I was really exposed to it and learned about doing work outside the United States, I was skeptical. I was ignorant. And what I've learned is that there are some tremendous teams out there. There's tremendous quality out there. There's tremendous work ethic out there. There are ways that you can do this work outside the United States and get great service with great people. And for me, I'm a small business guy at heart. I love small business. I love to help small businesses, and to be able to connect that service for them and introduce it for them, and they can realize the benefit in their business. It is a lot of fun. But also on the other side, there's the job creation and the things that we're doing for these communities and the local economies in other parts of the world. It just really makes it a lot of fun for me.
Gentlemen, my parting shot. I think all of you at one point have said we're all kind of in the same boat together. One way, shape, or form, you all said that. I don't think we're in the same boat. I do think we're in the same water, and I think we're all kind of submerged in this at the same time. But what I've learned in this conversation, what I've learned in other roundtable discussions that we're hosting for the revolution, and what I've seen in our industry, more broadly defined today as BPO, narrowly focused in accounts receivable management, revenue cycle, or just good old business management, I'll say this. We're all in a different boat, okay? Some of you talking about shared services, some of you are talking about nearshore services, some of you are talking about offshore services. Many in the industry don't provide those services. Some clients don't demand those services because, as you said, Eric, I think very, very well, you articulated there's a lot of ignorance, okay? But I think what this whole pandemic, when you bring in the social unrest, the political climate, and I'll use the word climate just to kind of keep it sane, okay? It's anything but sane. And then the pandemic and Mother Nature, who's very, very angry for some reason, doing the catastrophic things that we've seen not only here, but across the world. It's a very volatile time. I think having options and making informed decisions is critical. I want to say this. These three gentlemen could have been doing a whole host of other things today, personally or professionally. They chose to spend over an hour of their time educating you. Take the chance, reach out to them. They are not ignorant. They're intelligent. They live this world. And even if you're contemplating it at the lowest level, you owe yourself the obligation. It's an obligation to check them out and also check out your options and make an informed decision. This has been great. This has been eye-opening for me. You guys have really approached this not only diplomatically, knowing outside of this you might be ruthless competitors, but here you've been extremely friendly and informative. I want to thank the three of you. I want to thank my team. Without them, I wouldn't be here. Believe me, I could barely turn on a computer, and I'm trying to do everything digitally, okay? I believe very strongly the world is changing. Let's embrace change. My biggest fear, if you ask me, my biggest fear is we go back to business as usual. Think about that for a second. We have a golden opportunity for change. Change is healthy, change is good. Change shouldn't happen overnight, but it certainly needs to happen over time. And I think the world is finally, whether it's a choice or necessity, we're embracing it more than ever before. So I hope and pray you guys are healthy and stay healthy, your families stay healthy. I hope everybody on the call stays healthy during this very troubling time. But I will say this, this industry perseveres. It's built on entrepreneurialism. It's also built on a long-term perspective that as long as we're a capitalistic economy, there will always be a need for these services. And I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you all very much for your time and your consideration today. We appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Hello again. That was a wonderful roundtable, wasn't it? I learned a lot from our wonderful speakers, and I'm sure you did too. Before we finish, I want to quickly go over Q&A. If you asked a question in chat and hasn't been answered already, don't worry, you'll receive a response within 24 hours through email or another similar channel from one of our SMEs. In addition, I highly encourage you to connect with our speakers through the platform. They're extremely knowledgeable and they're super excited to share their knowledge with you. So I definitely encourage that. And feel free to reach out to us too, and to Mike, because I'm sure he'd love to talk with you as well. So once again, thank you for attending the Business Revolution Week, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.